All right, so there you have everyone's villains, and this will get sent out in the slideshow. Um, Before we get into character, I just wanted to talk a little bit about the short film that I sent you guys. Did people get a chance to watch it? It's okay if you didn't, but um, what was the general sense on that? Yeah, great. So we're going to do an exercise that I stole from one of my playwriting teachers. It's called What Would I Steal? And so basically this exercise is just, you're going to state one specific thing from the film that you can use in your own work. So for example, I might steal having a non-speaking character who reveals something about my protagonist. Does anyone want to add something they would steal from this short film?
I really liked when, like, the opening shot where they showed the dirty house before they showed him to establish who he is.
Yeah, so using location to establish character, that's great. When you introduce characters, you definitely want to think about what setting you're introducing them in and how they respond to that setting. So it's a great thing to notice. Other things people would steal from this film? Yeah, Ian.
Timothy Spall, or
Always.
I mean, no, yeah. But in seriousness, the I really liked how the robot's behavior kind of, I mean, you realize it more at the end why this is, but the robot's behavior is like almost like perfectly programmed to like just do what the guy wants and nothing that he doesn't want him to do. And it makes it realistic that he would accept this sort of non-person person into his life. Also, I wanted to say that I did not give myself the chance to watch this short film when you sent it, but as soon as I saw the title, I looked it up and I realized just a minute ago that I watched this at the end of the summer. So I have seen the film.
Nice, nice. But yeah, that's great. First of all, planting character-driven twists is great. Explaining things that may be hard to believe is helpful. Yeah, there's stuff we might want to steal. For those of you who saw it, did you like the film? Some nods. Okay. I thought it was a cute little character-driven film. I thought Timothy Spall's performance was really strong. But you don't have to like the films we watch. You're welcome to criticize them too. But hopefully there's something at least we can steal, even from the ones we don't like. Great. All right. This is Character 101. Let me go into presenter mode. So basically, I'm going to go through some quick basics in designing character, and then we're going to have a character exercise that I like to use, and then we're going to workshop Selma's script for a few minutes. So character. One thing to think about when you're designing characters is the distinction between character and characterization. Characterization is the observable qualities about a person. So for example, if someone has pink hair, or what kind of clothes they wear, or, you know, I have this art behind me, like, where did I get that and why? Like, so how people design their houses, present themselves. Well, true character is really about the choices someone makes under pressure. It's about who you are at your core and the kind of decisions that you will make. Both of these elements are important for characters, and we're going to talk about how they can work against each other and with each other in some interesting ways. But ultimately, as characters choose, that's who they are. That's the defining feature, is the choices they make under increasingly pressurized circumstances. And so part of your job is to design circumstances that are going to force your characters to make difficult decisions and then figure out who they are under that kind of pressure. So when we think of characterization, the big thing I want to drive home is specificity. You want to be really specific about who your character is, where they're coming from. Any details you can include are great. Now, you don't have to say that they're like, you know, this tall or have this color hair or whatever, because some of that's going to come down to casting and directing later on. But you do want to think about the expectations that you're creating with the details that you do give, and of using details that are interesting and that are going to draw your reader's attention to this character. So things that you want to consider when you are designing characters include their physical appearance. You want to include where they're from. For example, I'm from Chicago, if you guys didn't know that, and so a lot of my kind of worldview is informed by growing up in a big city and going to big public high schools, and having a lot of mobility. I have much less of a sense of like rural or small town life because this is the place where I've grown up. And I also feel very strongly that ketchup doesn't belong on hot dogs. You might want to think about their cultural background, think about what kind of clothes they choose to wear, things they do for fun. You can think about their sexual orientation and gender identity as part of this as well. You probably want to think about class, religion, spirituality, and even what species they are. A cat's going to behave in very different ways than a dog, or than a human, or than an alien, or than a robot. And so this can also inform the characterization in different ways. Now we're going to talk about some elements of like character, some elements that are going to inform the kinds of choices your character's making under pressure. One of these is backstory. As a writer, you're going to want to know a lot about your character's life. But in the actual script, you don't need to include every single detail. Scripts have limited time and limited space, and you really want to give us the juicy stuff. So focus on details that are relevant to the current story. You want to focus on key moments or events that are informing character choices in the present. And you can tell these moments if you think they're useful to understanding what your character is doing now and why they're making a choice that they make, either through dialogue with another character, as long as it doesn't get like too overwhelmingly talky, or you can use flashbacks. So some examples of how backstory can inform character choices and decisions in the present. You guys seen Hercules, the Disney movie? So, you know, Meg is very reluctant to enter a romantic relationship because she was betrayed by a former lover. Therefore, her backstory with this former lover keeps her from trusting Hercules and keeps that relationship from advancing. In BoJack, his experiences of growing up with an abusive family contribute to a lot of his mental health problems and his self-destructive cycles. I don't know if you guys have seen Cobra Kai on Netflix. Highly recommend. It's the Karate Kid show. But one thing they'll do is they'll cut in moments from the Karate Kid movies, which now form the backstories of these like 40-year-old men who have evolved from the movies. And so that reminds you of what happens, but it also shows how these characters' pasts are informing their interactions and their rivalries in the present. Or, you know, how Walter White in Breaking Bad, he got screwed out of this business that he started, and therefore he feels a lot of resentment and a lot of lack of recognition, which drives him as he begins his meth empire. Another key thing you want to think about is flaws. So you've all heard that characters like should be flawed, that perfect characters are like boring. But when you actually think of flaws, you also kind of want us to sympathize with your characters usually. You don't always have to like them, but you want us to get into them. So you usually want to focus on one main flaw. They can have other flaws, they can be total like mess ups, but you want to, it's really helpful to have one flaw that kind of they're driving to either resist or that either gets them in the end. So in the Greek tragedies, they had these idea of hamartias, you know, like the fatal flaw, like Augustus Waters from Tithio standing all high and mighty mentioning these. But your flaws don't have to be fatal. They can just be something that your character is struggling with and working to overcome. They can make characters more or less sympathetic. And they don't even actually have to be bad things. I think you can make an argument that one of like Ned Stark's flaws in Game of Thrones is his commitment to honor, even when that keeps him from seeing all of the possibilities. So even honor can be like a fatal flaw if it's something your character is struggling with and that puts them in danger. And you really want to think about structuring your story so that your characters have to confront these flaws. That leads to drama, it leads to tension, and it leads us to really figure out who they are. So like in Oedipus, you know, classic tragedy, the idea like his like fatal flaw, his hamartia, is his hubris. And so he gets tested of whether or not he'll trust the gods when he figures out like who he is. I think you could say that Anakin Skywalker's like hamartia is that he chooses romantic love over duty. That's what leads him further and further towards the dark side and towards choices that will turn him into Vader. I think for Walter White, you could say that it's his desire for recognition. He is so resentful and so seduced by the desire to be recognized for his brilliance that he will go to terrible lengths to kind of get the attention that he feels like he deserves. We also can talk about arcs. So your character's flaw is going to be key to their arc. An arc is a change in a character value from positive to negative or negative to positive over the course of the events of your story. When I talk about values, I really just mean like a characteristic. Like you can talk, it can be like, are they good or evil? So like a moral thing. It can be, are they selfish or unselfish? It can be, do they want to sacrifice themselves for the greater good, or do they want to live in the present? So it's really a key element of them that is evolving through the course of events. And your arcs can be positive. They can be characters redeeming flaws and becoming more confident and more capable. Emmett from the Lego movie has a positive arc. He starts out being very conformist and learns to kind of define his own identity and become a master builder and use creativity. Zuko from Avatar has a positive arc. And Darth Vader in Return of the Jedi has a positive arc. He gets redeemed by Luke and turns against the Emperor, thus saving the universe. Arcs can also be negative. This is your like villain arc, as characters give into their flaws and start to lose their more sense of morality. So like Walter White, obviously, or the Joker in the Joker movie are characters who are getting worse over time, who are giving in to flaws and desires. Or they can actually be flat. And that sounds boring, and you want to be careful about this, but this is really when your character is struggling to overcome their flaws, but there are external forces that are so powerful that they really can't resist them. So like in Uncut Gems, Howard is fighting against his gambling addiction. He really needs money for his family. He cannot keep gambling it away, but that force is too powerful for him, and ultimately he cannot overcome it. Arcs are also not necessarily linear. If you think about Zuko, and we're going to talk more about Zuko because I love him, but if you think about Zuko makes some real progress. Avatar spoilers, guys, sorry. Zuko makes real progress in season 2, only to kind of regress back to trusting Azula and fall into his desire for Ozai's love, and then betraying Team Avatar in that season 2 finale, even though he does ultimately have a positive arc and progress forward again. You also want your characters to have goals, and you want them to pursue those goals actively. Characters always want something. I cannot address this enough. This is like the building blocks of everything. Your character wants something. They're gonna do something to get what they want. Think about it. You will not speak unless you want something. You will not come here. You will not say any words unless there is something that you want. That can be as simple as greeting your neighbor because you know they will think you are mad at them if you do not greet them. But every time you speak and every time you act, it's because you want something. The same is true of your characters. They always want something. Usually they want a return to or a new stasis after the inciting incident disrupts them. They want life to get back to some kind of normal. They may have, that can look like different forms. It can look like dropping the ring in Mount Doom, or defeating the Empire, or defeating Ozai, or finding mental health and stability. But usually there's something that is disrupting their life, and we're going to talk about that more next week when we start to introduce structure, and they want that thing to be back to normal. And good characters take action to get what they want. Passive characters are really boring and usually frustrating. There may be certain roles for them, especially if you start to deviate from classical structure, but usually you want your characters to be doing things. Now, Hamlet usually gets a bad rap for being passive, right? You guys have all heard, like, Hamlet doesn't do anything. Like, he just mopes around the whole time. But if you actually look at the play, Hamlet does a lot of things. As soon as the ghost is like, you should get revenge, he immediately starts investigating his uncle, trying to figure out the truth of whether Claudius actually killed King Hamlet. And that's what really those first couple of acts are about. It's about Hamlet's investigation. And then once he figures out that he does, he immediately, he gets sent off on a pirate ship. But then he fights his way off the pirate ship, and then he like starts fighting Laertes, and and there's that whole kind of pile of bodies because Hamlet is taking action to figure out the truth and then to get revenge. Something that can be really fun and create multi-dimensional characters is to think about contradictions. So that's when different dimensions of your character are juxtaposed. Um, for example, you can juxtapose certain expectations that you create with your characterization with what the character actually does. This is a really fun way of playing with your expectations and subverting stereotypes to really make your characters stand out and be original. So if we're thinking about this, like Unikitty from the Lego movie, she like seems all like cute and sweet and happy, but then if you push her too hard, if you put her under pressure, she becomes terrifying. Or you know, Aang from Avatar, he's like playful and fun-loving, but he also wields this incredibly dangerous power that he can use to have a major force on the events of the world. Tony Stark is a vain weapons billionaire, but when you put him under enough pressure, he'll ultimately do the right thing. And even Toph from Avatar too, she seems characterized as a spoiled young girl. But as soon as you kind of crack that surface, you find out she's this mischievous badass. And so it's definitely playing with what you expect from this character and who that character actually is. That can be really productive. And then you can talk about foils too. So foils are just contrasting characters. You probably talked about these in high school English class. They help highlight opposing traits of a character. Usually foils are antagonists. Usually they're trying to get different things, but they don't necessarily have to be. But they're a way of really complementing each other. All right. I promised I would talk about Zuko. I think we can talk about him together a little bit. So if we think about Zuko, let's go back to season 1 Zuko. What would we say is his backstory for those of you who have seen Avatar? And spoilers for those of you who haven't, sorry. Is this a good example? Have you guys seen the show? Yeah, Ian?
His backstory, he I guess oversteps his boundary. He's the son of the Fire Lord, and he oversteps his boundaries a little bit, and his father punishes him, gives him a scar on his face, and banishes him, and says you can only return home if you find and capture the Avatar.
And we can see, right, how that backstory informs his choices in the present, because now he has this really clear goal informed by his backstory. What is Zuko's flaw?
I think it's like his desire to be a part of, I guess, like the Fire Nation community. Like, I don't really know how to explain it in a better term than that, but to be given honor by his family and able to return home with like glory in a way.
Yeah, I think that's
And
great.
like that,
Yeah, keep going.
yeah, that like is like a driving force in him that like keeps him from like realizing the reality of like the situations of the world.
Yeah, does anyone want to add to that?
Oh, yeah, I think yeah, that was like super like what I was kind of gonna say. But I think like more generally it might just be like acceptance and love from somebody. Because in the end he like finds it from a source that he didn't originally think he would.
Yeah, I think that's definitely getting to the heart of it. You know, Zuko talks about wanting honor a lot. But Zuko he's never really dishonorable. Even in season 1, he's honorable in his Agni Kais against like the other Fire Nation members. I think you're right. Zuko's flaw is that he's looking for acceptance and honor both externally and from the wrong sources. And so that's what Zuko's working to overcome. That's the hard decisions he has to make. Like in the season 2 climax, do I look for honor and for love from my father, or do I go try to find those things for myself? And he fails that choice in season 2. He sticks with Azula and goes back to his father. But yeah, I think that really hits it on the head. He also has some anger issues, which is I think a secondary flaw. I don't think that's his main conflict, but it definitely is also something that he works through along with this. We mentioned what Zuko wants. He wants to find the Avatar and restore his honor. He says that about 20 times if you watch the show. It's very clear. But how does he take action to get that?
I mean, he chases the Avatar across the world, across the entire, from the South Pole to the North Pole.
Yes, he's very single-minded in this goal. And then his arc is his arc is pretty clear. It's a positive arc. Is he overcomes his flaw. He stops looking for love and acceptance from his father and defines honor for himself, and then goes and joins Team Avatar, and it's all very cute. Cool. All right, let's do one more of these. You guys know these guys, right? Do you want to think, what are their backstories?
Well, one's a billionaire, billionaire, son of a billionaire too. You know, very, you know, enterprising, even opportunistic. Can be sort of selfish. I guess would be like one of his big criticisms. And then the other one, you know, well, he's from the past. You know, he one of his like one of the best things about him is like he's supposed to be very patriotic. I mean, you know, his name is Captain America. You know, and he very dedicated to, you know, supporting the people around him. So, but his criticism, would be sort of, you know, I'm not sure. It's been a while since I've seen any Marvel movies, but I forget what, you know, like the way Rogers says Iron Man is selfish. I don't know what sort of the flip side of that is, but
Yeah. How do these backstories inform their choices in the present? It can be throughout their movies or specifically in this moment in Civil War when they were fighting over this specific political issue. Anyone want to jump in?
I mean, it's possible that, I mean, Steve Rogers was a good, honorable man when he was sort of more scrawny and short and not as muscular, and wanted to join the war effort in World War II. And then he got this sort of once in a lifetime opportunity to be tested with this super soldier serum that turned him into Captain America. It's possible that the serum even heightened his sense of honor and virtue, and made him even more strong-willed at doing the right thing.
Yeah, I think it does. I think to go even further on that, you know, Steve's recent backstory from this point, this is a still from Civil War. Steve's recent backstory is that he's been betrayed and hunted by the American government in his last movie, Winter Soldier. He's a lot more cynical of it than he was. And so, you know, they're fighting about these accords that'll allow like oversight of superheroes. And he's just had this experience where he's very skeptical of government and has seen how government can become corrupted. And so that, I think, informs why he is so skeptical of this UN oversight of superheroes. Yeah, Rachel, you want to jump in?
Yeah, I think on the flip side with Tony, like when he was taken captive, he knows what it's like when his weapons get in the wrong hands. And so the reason that he is fighting for the Accords is to make sure that, like, I guess his backstory feeds into he wants like the world to be as safe as possible.
Exactly, yeah. And even earlier in this movie, like some of Tony, like when Scarlet Witch attacked the hospital, Tony saw both from his own life and his own mistakes how superheroes without supervision can go awry. And so that's definitely informing his stance here. What are their flaws? Can anyone take a stab at what their flaws are? Why don't we start with Tony? I think Tony's a little easier.
I mean, like I think I mentioned that like the Stark character, like, you know, he's supposed to be very selfish and well, just self-centered in general, but you know, yet like they're like, it feels like, every movie that, he has some, like redemption, and turns out not to be that way, and then like they sort of reset at the beginning of every movie. So I don't know if that really counts, since like he always ends up doing like this selfless thing at the end of each one. But
yeah, I think his arc is definitely about selfishness. And this is mid arc, so he's already a much better character, a much better person morally. He's worked to overcome his flaw than he was, at the beginning. But he still has an arc about selfishness and about sacrifice and about, what am I like? What will I give up for the sake of the world? And his ultimate, endgame spoilers, but the end of Tony's arc in the MCU is that he has to die to save the world, which is him finally ultimately overcoming this flaw. Not only does he have to die, he has to die at the moment when he finally has a stable family. And so that's kind of the ultimate overcoming of this selfishness flaw that was introduced in his first movie. What about Steve? Do you guys want to try Steve?
I could try to
Yeah.
say things. I think like the interesting thing with like the complementary of both of these characters is that they both have like a fatal flaw of like thinking that they're right, like just being so hard-headed. And like Steve is kind of the one that's like selfless and like thought of as like the more like upstanding moral one, but then that means that like he like strictly adheres to like a certain code of like what you're supposed to do. And he also like, there are different backgrounds where like Steve like came from like the Bronx, and like Tony was like super rich. They both like Captain America comes from something where he didn't really trust other people, and then Tony never really had a reason not to trust people because he's always just been so successful. So it's like interesting because they have like the same problem, but they come from like completely two different ends.
That's a really interesting take. And I think it's definitely helpful to look at these two characters as foils. I think the friendship and rivalry of these characters in particular drives the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or at least the Avengers plots of the MCU so far. So that's really great. Anyone else want to add to what they think Steve's flaw might be?
I can't remember the plot of The Winter Soldier too much, but I think Captain America can be sometimes too loyal to a fault, like, and that goes with what Judy said about his hard-headedness and stubbornness. Like he's not willing to, loyalty, to a fault at times.
Yeah, I think these are all great. I think his willingness to trust in systems, that he was raised to trust in the American government and the American military as systems. I think also in some ways his selfishness serves as a flaw. In his very first movie, he dives on a grenade and everyone's like, why didn't you run away, you dumbass? And so that's something he's working through. And ultimately, while Tony has to die to save the world, Steve has to just mess up time to live the happy life that he's always wanted. He has to overcome his selflessness in a certain way in order to have the time with Peggy that was stolen from him. Great analysis, guys. I do have a writing exercise for you. I think we're going to skip it for now and come back at the end so that we have time to look over Selma's script. So I'm going to email you all Selma's script now, and then I will also pull it up on screen share. And while I do this, I'll introduce workshopping a little bit. So workshopping is really meant to be constructive. It is meant to be supportive. So everything you say should be with the idea of building up somebody else's script. And so we usually do workshops in 3 steps. The script just went out. So the first step is going to be, does it make sense? So basically, can you understand it? Did you have questions about what Selma was trying to convey? The second step will be what you liked. So things that are really working, things that you think are successful. about the script. And then the third will be things that you think could be built on or that aren't working for you quite yet. You always want to try to offer suggestions with the intention of fulfilling the vision of the writer. You may have a cool idea that like, oh, maybe this should happen on the moon. And you can throw that out there, but you really want to try to be understanding of what they're working towards and working to build their vision, even if it isn't necessarily your thing. Yeah, and it's really just about building each other up, finding ways where if things aren't working, we can call them out, and then offering them some next steps. Did you all get that email? Is that coming through? All right, and I will add you to the list host in a sec. I'm also gonna pull this up on screen share. All right, Selma, I think we can do 3 to 5 pages. Do you just want us to start?
Perfect.
Okay. Is there anything you want us to know about the script going in?
I wrote it over the summer. I haven't looked at it since. It might be really bad, so this is what we're gonna try to figure out. And it should stop right at the beginning of 6. There's like 2 lines that end the scene.
Great. Selma, do you want to cast it?
Sure. We need a commercial narrator. We need a doctor. We need Arya, a John, and a Carrie. So we need 5. And then directions. Any takers?
I'm gonna raise my hand because I want to be cast, and people can do that.
Okay, Jody, do you have a preference?
No, I don't care.
You can be commercial. Ian, you can be John. We have 3 female roles. Anyone can play them, but just let you know. Anna, you can do our main character, Daria. Serafina, you can do Carrie. And then we need a doctor. Nick, you want to be the doctor? Okay. And then Abby, if you wouldn't mind doing stage directions. I'm super laggy, so I don't want to like mess anything up.
Sounds good. All right. Interior, Daria's studio apartment, afternoon. A commercial is playing on TV. Think typical 2000s infomercial style with narration. Various B-roll of sad, lonely people flash across the screen.
Are you tired of setting the table for one? Are you tired of third wheeling with your bonded friends? Are you tired of waiting for that little red string to appear? Get ready because the wait is over.
Outdated and excessive graphics fill the screen. Bright red arrows pointing to a small purple vial of liquid. Happy couples attached by red strings on their pinky fingers eat at a cafe, play in the park, and hold hands.
Introducing the newest and magical innovation, SoulFinder X. SoulFinder X is a patented potion solution to all your soulmate needs. Scientists have been working for decades to perfect their MPA-approved top secret formula. Just listen to leading scientist Dr. Sierra Sterling. Take it away, Doc.
A silver-haired woman walks onto screen. She's wearing a typical white lab coat and matching witch's hat upon her head. She smiles wide.
I'm Dr. Sterling, and just like 35% of the global population, I suffered from BSSM.
The acronym flashes on screen and reveals its meaning. Belated soul string manifestation.
The emotional turmoil and bullying I experienced in my youth pushed me to work endlessly on a potion that would change not only my life, but the lives of everyone like me. A potion that induces red string manifestation.
She paces slowly back and forth on screen. She motions to still images imposed on a green screen behind her, stock photos of labs and chemists. Her pacing ends at a couch where Paul sits. She reaches around the back and embraces him. They smile at the camera.
My partner Paul and I have been happily bonded for 5 years since the potion was first tested, and our formula has only improved. Now nearly 100% of all customers manifest a soul string in under 24 hours. Purchase SoulFinder X today and find your soulmate tomorrow.
She winks and is wiped away by a cheesy transition.
Thanks, Dr. Sterling, but don't just take it from us. Here's what our happy customers have to say.
The TV blips off. Daria, 21-year-old woman, is sitting in bed. The curtains are drawn tightly and the room is mostly dark. She yawns, stretching dramatically over the bed and scratches her stomach. Daria rolls over to the window and tears the curtains open, wincing as she does so. The sun is high, clearly afternoon. Getting up, she walks a short distance to her kitchen. The apartment is clearly inhabited by a single person. Her clothes are strewn about, dishes pile in the sink, and she's not wearing pants. There's a knock at the door. Daria isn't expecting company. She kicks her clothes under her bed and picks out a pair of shorts, hopping into them as she makes her way to the door.
What?
It is Carrie, 20-year-old woman, Daria's friend.
Let me in. I brought something exciting.
Daria walks away from the door and Carrie barges in. Carrie looks around the apartment. She's disgusted.
Christ, what is wrong with you? This place is a mess.
Not like anyone ever comes over.
Well, what about me?
Not like I ever invite anyone over.
Carrie walks over to the kitchen counter. She sets down a small brown package. Fragile, it says. Handle with care.
This is the exciting thing?
Carrie squeals, remembering her purpose. She starts rummaging through Daria's drawers looking for a knife.
Yes, yes. Have you heard of that Soul Searcher Z potion that hit the market?
What, Soul Finder X? Don't you dare tell me.
Carrie slices open the package. Inside, 2 little vials of purple liquid sit next to each other.
Oh, they're so cute and tiny. Daria, this one is for you.
Carrie slides the vial over to Daria, who gingerly pushes it back. She looks uncomfortable.
No, I'm not interested. You know I'm not interested.
It's been months. You need to get over him. The string works, Dar. You can't be mad at him for following it.
If the string works, why are you and I here with the pseudoscience tech magic bullshit?
This is treatment. You take medicine when you're sick, right? This is the cure for our BSSM.
Daria runs a hand through her hair. Carrie plants her elbows on the counter and leans down, pleading with big puppy eyes.
Daria, don't you want to find your soulmate, your other, better half? I'm taking it regardless, but I want you to find happiness with me.
Fuck you. Fine.
They each take a vial. Carrie offers hers out to clink with Daria's. They down the potion. Daria and Carrie look expectantly at their hands. Daria wiggles her pinky. She looks up at Carrie.
I guess it isn't instantaneous.
Carrie screams.
Your finger!
Daria looks down again. A red string is now tied around her pinky. Daria gives it a slight tug. She starts to shake and shudder, clearly anxious.
What do I do?
Without time to respond, Daria suddenly lurches forward. The string pulls taut. It is trying to lead her somewhere, to someone.
This is it! It's happening! Daria, we have to follow it.
Without time to put on shoes, Daria is pulled out of her apartment. Carrie follows, cheering and bouncing excitedly. Exterior street, afternoon. Daria's strings tug her at an odd half-run walk pace down the street. Her bare feet, flustered demeanor, and pajamas draw some attention from passerby. She breathes heavily through her nose and out her mouth.
I think I'm gonna throw up.
Don't be such a drama queen. This is going to be the happiest day of your life. You'll finally be bonded. You'll finally have closure from what...
Don't say his name. I might shit myself too.
The string takes them on multiple turns and curves, down grass paths, through a game of ultimate frisbee. They follow the string and it grows tighter and tighter, indicating their proximity to Daria's soulmate. As Daria and Carrie enter an intersection of the sidewalk paths, Daria stops. John is stopped as well. People continue to flutter by. None of them cross the red string that now links Daria and John.
Have fun!
Carrie exits into the crowd. John and Daria still haven't moved an inch.
Hey.
Hi.
The moment of realization and awe fades, and people begin to bump into John and Daria, forcing them out of their shock.
Want to get out of here?
Shoes.
Daria laughs. John looks down at her bare feet. He laughs.
Yeah, shoes.
All right. Nice job. Did it make sense? Yeah? We're following? What do we like about it? What's working? Yeah, Judy?
It's super engaging. Like you really want to like get to the next page. So that's like a really, really good thing.
I really liked the friendship between Daria and Carrie. I think especially for a story about soulmates, to like base it around a female friendship is really sweet to see, and also like much kind of fresher and more relatable, I think.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Other things we liked?
I think the characters' like relationships to each other, as well as like their attitudes, are whether it's with this product or um, what's happening around them. I think that like that's all very clear.
Yeah, you had a lot to explain and you did it in a way that was very concise and that we were able to catch a lot of us up. I think it's a really fun premise. Obviously, soulmates are always fun when you put them kind of in exploring how we get them, how we get those questions of love. So I think that's enjoyable. I think you have a good pace. I think things are moving quickly. I think Claudia's intervention as an inciting incident works well. Any other things that we want to add that we liked?
It's funny. It's a comedy and it's funny. That's good.
That is always very good. What are some things that we feel like aren't working yet or that Selma could keep building on?
I think it's always important to have a good understanding of like what a character wants, because at least when I was reading and just speaking it, I felt like Daria was a kind of a passive protagonist where things were forced onto her and she wasn't really looking to change. She was forced into it. So maybe incorporating some element where she's looking to do this, or this is distracting her from doing something else that she was looking forward to doing or needs to do. That might be a good way to incorporate a little bit more character depth. But overall, it was like really fun to read and act a bit out. So good job.
Yeah, I think that point about conflict, whether it's Daria's doing something else and doesn't want to be distracted, or if she has some reason to really not want to do this, I think that could definitely heighten some of the conflict between her and Carrie and really take those first couple pages to the next level. I think backstory too, I know we hear that she broke up with this guy Will, but some sense of like who Daria is, even if it's just a couple hints in art direction, or why this is something that could make, or why this could be either uniquely appealing or uniquely horrifying to her, could be really helpful. Yeah, Ian? Okay, never mind. Other things that we think Selma could build on? Yeah, I would say really just thinking through building conflict in this first scene, thinking through subtext and dialogue, just like reading that out loud one more time could be helpful.
Hi, I'm back.
Hi, Ian. Did you have something to add, or is your hand
Yeah,
just up?
sorry. The door, someone knocked on the door. If this hasn't been said already, I was gonna say that I think I was a little confused on Daria's backstory. I wasn't clear on what happened to her, that like there's like just a couple of sentences where it's like you gotta get over this thing that happened, and I wasn't quite sure what had happened.
I think it's implied, this breakup, right? But again, I think you can further use that to fuel her in the present.
Was it like a soul string breakup or something, or was it just like a normal breakup?
Yeah, so this is on like the next few pages, because Daria does start becoming more of an like she doesn't want this. Like she really doesn't want to rush into something like this, and it explains her whole thing with Will later on. But I guess like in the beginning, it just maybe isn't as clear.
I think you can further
yeah.
heighten that and further use that. I know Selma just gave us a hint, but where would you guys guess this is going? This is less about telling Selma what she should do than about helping to clarify what expectations she has set up so far so she can know whether she's going to fulfill or subvert them.
I read ahead like a page, and I like that the commercial comes back, and the fact that you're weaving it in throughout. I'm expecting something to go wrong, and I'm expecting it to like have to do with the commercial, or for the commercial to foreshadow whatever issues come up.
Great. So this seems like it's going too well. We're waiting for something to go wrong right now. Any other things we're expecting?
I feel like we're probably going to understand a bit more about John. His like character is probably going to be, yeah, I don't know, sorry.
Yes, learning more about John. Selma, do you have any questions for us?
Right now, I think you guys gave pretty good notes, so I think I'm okay right now. But yeah.
All right, thanks for sharing that, Selma. All right, everyone, it is 8 o'clock. I'm going to table our writing exercise. Sorry we ran out of time this week, but we will do that in a future week. Let me exit out of screen share. Really great to see everyone again. I hope that was helpful. For those of you with creative writing backgrounds, I know some of this may be a review, but it's such solid stuff that even for me, just like reminding myself of all of these like basic elements again, I think can be really helpful. I'll stick around for a minute if anyone has specific questions. And if you're not on the list host, I know I need to add a couple people, but that's where you're gonna get slides, you're gonna get a recording, and you're gonna get a recommended short film for next week. Really great to see everyone. Have a great week.
I had something to say and I forgot. Once again, I forgot what it was.
Okay, Ian.
We have another hour, right? I can just sit here and
No, I have to go to a fire escape meeting, buddy.
Oh shoot, yeah.
No,
Oh, that's
okay.
what I was gonna say. There was like a doc thing. Like I don't know if you saw the Facebook thing, but there was
it was at this time. You can probably still join.
I'll see. Anyways.
It's happening right now. I would recommend.
I won't hold you. See you later.
You're good. You're always free to email me, Ian. Have a good one.